Brought to you by Hulu. Time to have great original shows and movies. Time to have Hulu. Hey, good morning, good evening, and good night, party people. Welcome to SJU Wednesday edition. We have a moderately sized ball of news for you today. HBO dropped a teaser for the Game of Thrones prequel, known as the House of the Dragon. We'll see how much fire or blood is left in that stone to squeeze out. We're going to be talking in lieu of the Wonder Years reboot. What other old TV shows should get another spin? And we're going to be talking about the POD nu metal song "Tick Tick Boom," which I believe has gotten a Netflix adaptation starring Andrew Garfield. That's exciting. And then we're going to react to Will Smith ranking his best and worst films. Do you agree that it's Wild Wild West for both? You be the judge. We also have, as always, some live chat and comments and questions, so keep those coming. And if Eric has time, we'll answer them.
Sorry. I'm sure there'll be time.
He does have a meeting, but we're gonna get right to it. We got Eric, we got Kim, and we've got the Targaryens. HBO dropped this a little teaser. No, I wouldn't call this a full-fledged trailer, and I don't think they do either. But we do get a lot of choice little morsels of Game of Thrones mutton. And do we care? Is the first question. I do, sort of. I do like that this is a book that's already been written. This has an ending. We know how this plays out. The people who are responsible for everything good and bad about the Game of Thrones TV show are not involved. They're gone. Benioff and Weiss, they're off into their Confederate plantation or wherever they'd like to be. And we have a new crack at this world, and I think I like it, except I worry that every time they try to tie it in to the Song of Ice and Fire timeline, I'm just going to roll my eyes because I know it ends with Bran. What do you guys think? How do you feel about this teaser?
Kim, you go.
Well, I mean, it looks a lot like Game of Thrones, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. What it doesn't show is the inevitable nudity, sex, incest, and misogyny.
Well, no, okay. There is definitely incest. Those are sister wives or sister brother wives. The Matt Smith and the other one. But I
think But
go on. Proceed. Sorry.
And then my biggest takeaway from it is the throne looks a lot spikier, and I feel like it's had a Steppenwolf makeover.
It did, which is truer to the original book or the source material, where it's supposed to be piled so high and it's like a lot more gnarly and like heavy metal. And season 1 Game of Thrones, they didn't have the biggest budget, so they kind of made they did the best they could. It looks like it was kind of 3D printed, but it really is thousands of swords kind of just melted into a big pile, and they carved a chair into it. So I think it's an improvement.
I think it's a lot more dangerous, though. If you stumble out of that chair, those steps are lined.
Kings were always poking and stabbing themselves on it, actually. So it's true to life.
There you go.
Yes, it is real life. It's a historical document. You can read about
blood.
it.
And the other interesting thing was Olivia Cook's character seemed to have the cat's paw dagger. I don't know if it is, but it looks a lot like it.
That's the same one that was attempted to kill Bran and then was used again to kill the Night King. Didn't realize that you have two hands. Gotta watch out for both of them. Anyways, Eric, what do you think about that?
I'm intrigued. I guess I'm sufficiently teased by the teaser. I think of Game of Thrones fondly in its totality, as much as the ending was not a good one. I mostly think positively back on that show. Obviously, if it had ended great, it would give more excitement. But I think that, you can still see that there's interest in this. There's, a lot of people are checking out this teaser and curious about it. It's a true teaser. I mean, look, they just tell you 2022. They don't even have a month for us yet. So it makes sense that this is just kind of glimpses. I agree with you, Spencer. It's like, I hope they can avoid too much of the this object, this thing, it's like, and it's going to be very tempting for them to do that. So we'll see. But for now, I'm in wait and see mode because, I mostly have positive memories of 8 years of watching this show. that this is a prequel / spinoff of, and I hope they can recapture some of that. And we'll see.
I mean, it is 200 years previous to, the other Civil War that kind of kicked off the Baratheons and the Starks and all that stuff. I worry, not worry, but I wonder how they're going to get us on board or find. I know everybody's like a shade of gray on Game of Thrones, but the Starks, you like the Starks. The show is intended to be like, you like a lot of these people more than you dislike them. And the Targaryens,
they're a better family.
Yeah. Oh boy, the Targaryens is just a lot of vowels and incest and murder. And granted, the whole thing kicks off because it's one of those succession things of like, there was a daughter and she was passed over for the throne. So it's like, is it a proto-feminist thing? Because like they want it's the queen's people against this other family that was passed on through like a sort of distant male line. I don't know. It all gets very esoteric and confusing when you start talking about the Targaryens, because there's so many of them and they all kind of look and sound alike. So I wonder who we're supposed to be rooting for. But I guess that's Game of Thrones in a nutshell, right? It's just like a big plop of semi-evil people, and you just kind of pick sides.
And then there's a handful that are just like the worst people ever.
Yeah, you put them next to them, and then you're like, oh yeah.
So you're like, well, I don't root for him.
Yeah.
So I guess I got to root for this other guy.
Totally. I mean, do you guys care about Targaryen history at all? Just without having gone through it yourselves?
I mean, yeah, I was trying to think, am I excited about this? Yeah, I suppose I am. The whole prequel thing is controversial. A lot of people don't like it because what happens ultimately. But I'm okay with that. And that family does have a rich history that is worth exploring on screen, I think. And that family in particular, because of their history of incest, I'm not obsessed with incest, is allows for lots of I don't know, I'll stop there.
Okay, I'll give you one get out of take free card. You got to use it today. Pull the eject button. I do think that I just always, my eyes kind of glazed over when I read Targaryen history stuff. But I am enthused. Like, I think that the prequel kind of gets you out of the trap that the original series fell into, which is like, how do we end this thing? Where does everybody end up? What are we going to do? Do you want to go do something else, David? Yes, I do. Let's just end this now. And after 6 episodes, you're free of that. I think that it has a very clear start date and a very clear end date to this series. And I think that Game of Thrones will probably be improved by that. So yeah.
And also, like, I my eyes glaze over too if I just like read the histories, and then this happened. The cool thing about Game of Thrones is that it made it such a game, but like the chess playing, the how people like kind of were maneuvering. So if they can kind of keep that whole vibe of it with it, so it's not just like. And then this happened, because I think I've mentioned before, like I'm a hard sell on like high fantasy, but my friend convinced me to read the books by saying it's different. It's a different vibe to it, which it was. And so hopefully this will continue that.
Yeah. And this is far back enough that I'm pretty sure they still have dragons. I mean, you see the big skull of Viserion, I think, and they're, although it is dead and surrounded by candles, but it's still in like a place of honor, not buried in the basement. But it's still not as far back as where you're going into high fantasy territory, which is Game of Thrones is cool. It's like a world where that sort of stuff used to be commonplace and magic has kind of faded out with the times. So you're kind of catching the tail end of it in this timeline. I think someone will correct me on just how many dragons there are.
George R. R. Martin said, while not writing his book that he'll never finish, that there will be as many as 17 dragons in this show. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Which is cool. I feel like that's just going to look bad to see 17 dragons fighting each other, or even just 2. And I think the Game of Thrones at its most exciting is stuff like the Mountain and the Viper fighting and stuff like that, and the more grounded combat, like the Battle of the Bastards and stuff. And when you get into the heavy metal album cover, I don't know, I don't think it looks as cool, but we didn't get any of that. So we'll see. Ryan, is anyone in the chat psyched about this? Do people still care, or are we all off the throne?
Yeah, there's some questions of it in the live chat section of the script, but let me see. Luis Venezuela asked, like, what kind of Game of Thrones spinoff would you like to see? Like, if it wasn't going to be this, and what would you want?
I see his full comment is, I'd see a spinoff of the servants in the background who have to deal with all the family drama stuff. Well, I do think that Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, like it did that, with Hot Pie, and there were certainly people in Essos that Khaleesi was always coming into contact with. Like, they did a decent enough job of showing you the whole social strata of the society, and how it didn't kind of matter that the Game of Thrones that was playing, it still sucked to be on the bottom. What I'd like to see, man, let me think about that. Does anyone have an instant Game of Thrones spinoff they'd like?
I don't know. I mean, I will say that on paper, I was more excited about the Jane Goldman No Relation one with Naomi Watts, that I just thought like could be a little more like doing its own thing. This one seems more dependent on like wanting to connect more, but it doesn't mean it'll be bad. It's just like, yeah, that one's, and I like Jane Goldman a lot, so I was excited by that. But my fingers will remain crossed for this.
Okay. Kim, anything?
I mean, I love all of the Three-Eyed Raven stuff. I'd like to dive maybe more into that mythology. That would be my choice, I think. But I'd be interested in seeing most things. Game of Thrones was very enjoyable, and I love all the rich fantasy. I'm up for this House of the Dragon, and I would equally watch anything.
I'm going full Greyjoy, just the most miserable family on the most miserable island where nothing grows and everything's gray, and it's a bit like England, right, Kim? Everybody's just stuck with each other.
Like my daily life.
Everyone's just sad and salty, and the whole world is kind of against them, but they're and they think that they're owed everything. So yeah, I think I think the Greyjoys would be the most fun, dank, nasty,
slushy
HBO possible thing. And they're good at boats. It's totally the UK. I can't believe I never realized that before. All right, let's move on. We got.
I'll just set up a camera out the window, Spencer, and you can stream it.
Yeah, season 1, the Greyjoy. All right. At this point, if you haven't liked or subscribed or hit the thumbs up, do that. Let's move on. You may have noticed that these episodes have been brought to you by Hulu. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. They have a show coming out that's supposed to be very good. The Wonder Years, part 2, or not part 2, the New Wonder Years.
The New Wonder Years.
It's on ABC. You can. I hope you can catch that on Hulu. And that got us thinking. What other older TV show, and I know older is a relative term between the people on camera and the audience and everywhere in between, but what's a older show that you would like to see a fresh take of? And all the development executives can start taking notes now. Eric, what do you got?
Well, I'm going with one that I know there's huge legal hurdles to, but I am the master of my universe and just declaring that if I can make it happen, then it should, which is Tales from the Crypt, which was supposed to a few years ago. There was going to be a new one M. Night Shyamalan was producing. It was going to be TNT or TBS, and it fell apart because of complications with the rights, and it's kind of split up a bunch of people. But so let's pretend they can work all that out. Tales from the Crypt, just a fun, anthology horror show. I do enjoy Creep Show on Shudder, which sometimes some have worked better for me than others, but I like that Tales from the Crypt is so kind of over the top, campy, fun, super gory. If you look back, it had sort of crazy guest stars and weird episodes where like Arnold Schwarzenegger directed an episode. And with the Crypt Keeper, they really leaned into having this really fun host who's, quotable and memeable. And Crypt Keeper should come back after all this time. Get that puppet out there again. And by the way, there was the 2 Tales from the Crypt movies. One of them's really bad, Bordello Blood, but the Demon Knight's awesome. So yeah, I just think that there's a lot of fun to be had. You can go back, you can adapt the original comics again while also doing your new spins on it. That there's plenty to do there. And we've seen success with American Horror Story and other horror anthologies, but I feel like Tales from the Crypt has its own vibe, its own thing it was doing, that I think people could have a lot of fun. I understand that if you make it in 2021, you'll inevitably have like an episode starring like some Instagram stars, and I'm willing to accept that, because you'll also get an episode starring like the Always Sunny guys or something.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, horror anthology. It's having a moment in the fact that the not the granddaddy of them all, but one of the most successful, recognizable versions of it hasn't come back to screens. That makes sense that it's in a bit of a legal hell.
Yeah.
I'd be into that.
It's why it's not even on HBO Max. I think it's just like, there's some lawyers got to get in a room and figure it out. But
come on, guys, get in the room with the puppets. But that could be what one of the episodes is about. Kim, you picked something I had never heard of. What is this show?
Right, so I have picked The Highwayman, and I'm not surprised you don't know it because it was short-lived. It had one season. It debuted in the 80s. 1987 was the pilot episode aired, and it starred Sam J. Jones, Flash Gordon himself, as the Highwayman.
Ted's Sam Jones?
Ted's Sam Jones, that's the one. So so the premise was...
And is that him on the right there, grimacing? Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Shorn of his blonde locks.
Yeah.
So it's set in the near future, and was like a cross between kind of Mad Max and Knight Rider, and a bit Airwolf as well. And I love all those 80s shows. Not that Mad Max was an 80s show, but it was made by Glenn A. Larson. So he was behind Knight Rider, The Fall Guy, Magnum, Battlestar Galactica. So
all the good stuff.
Yeah, you got a kind of idea of the flavor of it. So the Highwayman was one of a group of these guys that worked for this mysterious organization fighting crime, solving mysteries. They had these high-tech trucks. This here that you can see, this is a helicopter coming out the front. So,
Nice.
So that could detach from the truck.
Yeah.
And out of the back there was a Lotus Esprit, which was cool. And in the pilot episode, the truck could go invisible as well, but they never came back to that for the rest of the series. I don't know why. Maybe budget restrictions.
Probably.
That's cool. So anyway, very kind of post-apocalyptic, lots of desert road sequences. I loved it. I want this to come back, maybe with, I'm thinking Idris Elba in the Sam J. Jones role. Actually, I interviewed Sam Jones a while back and asked him about this series, and he said that he had been in talks with Glenn Larson about bringing it back. But then Glenn Larson sadly died, and it hasn't happened yet.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say I'd forgotten that this show had existed, and then I was reminded by you, Kim, and I looked it up, and the opening credits are amazing, wonderful, awesome 80s stuff. And there was a guy named Jacko, we have to mention, who was he's the other guy in that picture, Spencer.
Okay, got it.
He was a personality in the 80s, and he would do Energizer commercials here in America. And he would go, "Going to surprise you? New Energizer, oi!" And again, only went by Jacko. And if you watch the opening credits to The Highwayman, one of my favorite credits ever now is Jacko as Jetto.
Yeah, well, let's make sure we save that. That part of it needs to be in there, or in loving memory of Jacko as Jetto.
Right. And they got to get someone who will be Jetto. That will be my new hashtag. Who is Jetto?
That's awesome. Okay, I got to check that out because I love a good wasteland. I feel like we don't spend enough time on wastelands on TV. For some reason, it's more of a film genre. I guess zombie stuff counts, but give me an old fix-upper helicopter truck any day of the week.
Right.
Yes, Spencer.
I am in. And now something that you said you had never heard of, which I am shocked. My pick is for The Critic, which was a semi-shortly lived, I think it went off and on the air a few times, 90s animated show. John Lovett stars as, he's kind of a combination of Siskel and Ebert and just like a complete buffoon. And it's this really good mix of like highbrow and lowbrow because they're making really funny, observations in his life about film and art and stuff like that. But he's also like a complete doofus. And we have it to thank / blame for Family Guy, I think, because they have so many cutaway jokes. But it makes sense in universe because it's always cutting away to these parody versions of films that he was reviewing. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger has to go undercover as a rabbi, Orthodox rabbi, and then you would see some of that movie, and then it would come back. And it's just, man, this is, if Screen Junkies existed in the 90s, I feel like this is it. It's like the mix of trying to sound smart and also making poop jokes at the same time. It's created by Al Jean and one of the other big Simpsons writers. So it's got some good comedic brains behind it. And I don't know why this didn't catch on. I really don't know why people didn't like. I guess because it was too smart for Home Improvement and too dumb for the Simpsons fans. I don't know. It was in that block though of Fox evening programming, and John Lovitz can still do the voice. Like there's still movies to be made fun of. He can just have a YouTube channel. Bring it back. Done.
And they even put there was an episode of The Simpsons that he was on. Jay Sherman. He did a crossover. I really like the show too. And it's funny, Spencer. I was thinking, well, you bring it back. And maybe it could be both of them. But like, he could have like a kid who's really popular as a YouTube critic. Yeah.
Definitely. Perfect.
It writes itself. There he is on The Simpsons.
Got to go and watch all the original episodes now.
I think you'd enjoy it, Kim.
I really think you would. Yeah, even just best of compilations. The animation was not great, but that's fine. You don't need it to be. At least it doesn't look like everything else that's on TV right now. And I think that whether this is, I think this is like made for streaming. That this is such an easy reboot for me, and there's present channel is proof positive. There's so many dumb things about movies that you can have fun with these days, and I would love to see what Jay Sherman thinks about everything from Ghostbusters 2016 to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I really want to see his take on that stuff.
I want to get Jay Sherman MCU hot takes.
Yes,
sure.
Exactly. Maybe it's too insidery. I don't know, but I think I would love to see that one come back. So there you go. There's 3 of them for you, Hulu. Get to work. But there's something else coming out. Nice transition. There's something else coming out.
There are things happening.
There are other things happening in the world. Specifically, they dropped a full trailer for Tick Tick Boom, which is not the POD song. It's about the process and the man behind the musical Rent, played by Andrew Garfield. And it is, I don't know how much I can get into this. Are there history spoilers? Are there such a thing as 90s history spoilers?
I don't think so, right? I think it happened.
Yeah, well, when I said tragic, that kind of tells you all you need to know. He worked for years on this, desperately tried to make this thing happen, through the AIDS crisis and beyond. And of course, he dies, not of AIDS, of an undiagnosed
very
disease.
Rare, sort of strange medical thing. Yeah.
Right as it's opening and becomes this absolute sensation. Directed, not starring, but he might give himself a cameo. Who knows? Directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And Andrew Garfield, I didn't know he sang. I don't know if he does, but he sounds pretty good in this. What do you guys think of this trailer?
Yeah, I'm ready for Garfield has always seemed like one of those guys who like hasn't quite had it happen, right? Like he was freaking Spider-Man, but he was Spider-Man in movies that people didn't really like too much. And he's a great actor. So I like seeing him in the spotlight again. And I'm curious about Lin-Manuel Miranda directing like this feature film.
Yeah, he is like an accomplished stage actor, but just for straight plays, not musicals. So Kim, what do you think?
I mean, when I first started watching this trailer, I thought it was the Squid Game story.
That was
another thing years in the making. But I mean, it looks really uplifting, which is nice. And Andrew Garfield's hair is high, which is also nice. I felt really sorry that he's, you know, when he's on the phone to the customer in the diner and they're trying to book a table, I felt really sorry for that person because they didn't know, they just wanted to book a table. And he was really annoyed. Kind of.
So Netflix can do a spin-off about the person on the phone.
Yeah, that's in Red Notice. It's actually Gal Gadot on the other end.
Oh, that would
The
be
universe
cool.
is connecting. And there is a Squid Game tie-in, but you have to wait till the very end.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is also a musical, I think, that was off Broadway. That's about Rent the musical, and I've seen Rent. I don't really remember it, or I couldn't name all the songs off of it. But I thought this looked good. I'm enjoying this kind of resurgence of movie musicals, and Lin-Manuel. I got really bored about halfway through In the Heights. So I don't know what that says about the but he didn't direct that, right? He just wrote
Did not direct it. For what it's worth, I very much enjoyed In the Heights.
But I really enjoyed it. And then like after the pool sequence, I just like, I don't know.
It could have been shorter. I will say.
Yeah. So this is Ryan saying this is Lin-Manuel's feature directorial debut. And I mean, he does everything else. Why not this? Let's see how it goes. So yeah, I think that's November 19th. That's an easy stream for me, baby. That's a no-brainer.
We're on easy stream.
Yeah, we're on easy stream. And now our final thing to digest before we move on to questions and depart for our various meetings. Will Smith, he gave an interview to GQ where stars go undercover online to respond to comments about themselves. Yeah, right. I'm sure that's very screened, but whatever. I'm sure he had fun doing it. So he revealed what he considers to be the best and worst work of Will Smith's career. For the best, he thinks it's a tie between The First Men in Black and The Pursuit of Happiness for different reasons. He says, quote, those are the two almost perfect movies he's been a part of. And as far as what he considers his worst, he says Wild Wild West. Wild Wild West is just a thorn in my side to see myself with chaps. I don't like it. Well, what do you guys think of Kim? What do you think of Will Smith's best and worst? And is it the same as yours?
Yeah, I would say his best film is Men in Black. Definitely. He's always really watchable and charming and everything, but he's got a lot of mediocre films in his back catalogue, in my opinion. And Men in Black is outstanding, and he was at the height of his rise, if you like, and funny and as charming as he'll ever be. So and I agree with him, the film was almost perfect. So and then did you ask me about what I think about his worst? I mean, I don't know if it's his worst film kind of technically, but it could be his most racist. And
Wild Wild West.
There's a lot of controversy about the jokes in it and some of the things that happen. And I looked up some of the quotes at the time, and he'd said in an interview, I sure hope people think this is funny, because this is one of those setups that can either be hilarious or it can be something people will hate for the rest of their lives. He foresaw this.
Wow, if only he could, if only he could change. But I look, Wild Wild West is terrible. But I think it's more just jokes that fall flat for me, which doesn't make for the worst possible movie of his. I think that just makes for an unfunny movie. For me, his worst is and will always be Collateral Beauty. And I rank myself amongst one of the few people who actually have watched Collateral Beauty, because I think it's much worse to see people do faux sincerity or just overwrought complete sentimentality and fail, rather than just do crude jokes that fall flat. I think this was so much like, give me an Oscar, give everybody involved an Oscar, and to see them get it so wrong for so long is really a unique viewing experience that I suggest everyone take, and maybe know ahead of time that none of the characters you're spending any time with are human beings. They're actually divine agents of love sent from heaven.
When I've read, I haven't seen that movie, but I've read everything about it, and it's insane. It's insanity.
It is truly insane. Truly insane. Props to Michael Pena and Ed Norton and really everyone involved for keeping a straight face during that film. That is my, by far, with a bullet, worst Will Smith movie. And I got to agree with you and him. I think Men in Black is like, if it's not a perfect film, it's at least a perfect use of Will Smith. Pairing him up with Tommy Lee Jones is just, I mean, that's just peanut butter and jelly right there. It's just a perfect combo. And compared to the other Men in Blacks, it's just so tight and smart and moves quickly and looks cool. And what more do you need? I think that's the best Will Smith possible is blockbuster buddy pairing Will Smith. Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, it's funny because so it's like I haven't seen Collateral Beauty and I haven't seen a few of them. I realized I didn't see Gemini Man after making fun of the trailer for a long time. Personally, for worst, it's like I think Suicide Squad is worse than Wild Wild West. But I understand why Will Smith would probably say Wild Wild West because at the time, it's like on paper, it was the same director as Men in Black. 2 years after, it's the movie he did instead of The Matrix. And it felt like, we're going to do it again. And so I'm sure it kind of hit harder that this just didn't work. And it didn't even get like the money that Suicide Squad made. So it just felt like a dud. So I understand why for him personally, but I'd say Suicide Squad is actually a worse movie. But Wild Wild West is very bad, mind you. But I'm also going to go Men in Black, even though, again, you could say like, are there other ones that like Ali and all these, he's made some good movies, but Men in Black is pulls off something really tricky by being such a sort of crowd-pleasing, successful sci-fi action summer movie. I once went to a Q&A that Ed Solomon, the writer of Men in Black, did. That was one of the best, most like candid I've ever seen. He probably said things he wasn't supposed to, where he just talked about the process of that movie coming together and the rewrites and this and everyone throwing out and how you have to take Spielberg's ideas and Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, who doesn't want it to be a comedy. And you kind of realize the miracle of when a movie ends up really good like Men in Black and why we get so many bad ones too of this type of movie. But everything came together on Men in Black. So it's just, and it was on the heels of Independence Day, but it's like, it's a better movie than Independence Day and has like this buddy dynamic at the center that really works with one of Hollywood's most notorious curmudgeons. I would, if you asked me what Will Smith movie would I most like to watch, it would be Men in Black.
Well, that's a different question. I do think that Men in Black is probably the best use of him, probably the closest he'll get to best film, but I would much rather watch a Bad Boy or an Independence Day than
we separate there, I'm afraid. Although I like those movies too. They're enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm with you, Eric.
There's just so much more rewatchable. They're just more silly. But and he has a lot of like really good but not great films and like okay films. He's got a large body of B- to B+ material. Like I really like I Am Legend. I really like Pursuit of Happiness. I really like I, Robot even. But he has nothing like really breaks through out of that mold except for 2 or 3 films in his very long career. So all right, keep it up, Will. We'll see. We'll see what we have to say after King Richard comes out. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's gonna definitely be another Bad Boys because that was a big hit right before the pandemic.
That's right. Yeah, top grossing film of the year, wasn't it? Or almost?
Yep, it was. No, it was
nice.
In America. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, on to the live chat. Let's do a couple questions before we take off. Matan Valensky asks, he introduced himself to Star Trek through Lower Decks. Where do you recommend he goes next? I don't know what level of Trek knowledge this panel has, but I've only seen Voyager, so I say go to Voyager. Captain Janeway is my captain, and 7 of 9.
You've only seen Voyager, man. I didn't know that.
It's weird. It's just how my age broke down of like when I was watching TV.
That's funny.
And so I started and ended with Voyager, which I really liked, and have always meant to go fill in the gaps, but haven't had the time. So any other suggestions? Or watch, I guess Rick and Morty. Isn't Lower Decks like a Rick and Morty alum? The people who created that.
That's the thing. They don't say that that it has to be Star Trek, I suppose. But I haven't watched Lower Decks, but I do love. I'm a big fan of Disco, Star Trek Discovery, and yeah, I'm not a huge Star Trek fan. I've dipped in and out of it over the years. I love disco and I love OG. So, but I would say go disco first, and then skip back and start from the beginning.
All right. Wow. Got your homework cut out for you, Eric.
I'm also mid-level. Like, yeah, I haven't seen any Voyager. I haven't seen any Enterprise. I've seen some DS9. But I'll go with Next Generation, which again has that caveat of like the first 2 seasons aren't great. But I think has a great group of characters, and then around the 3rd season does get great and ends up giving you all these iconic things and elements like the Borg and storylines that they still reflect upon and have have had reverberations for years after. So there's something, even though the original 2 of course is a pivotal part of TV history, Next Generation would be like, yeah, that gives you a big all-encompassing look at the Trek universe. It has guest appearances from people from the original cast. It sets up a show, Picard, that's on right now. So that's my TNG.
You know what I say? Ask Dan. Shoot Dan an email, see what he has to say. He probably knows better than all of us, because unfortunately there's all gaps in our Star Trek timeline knowledge. But Voyager was cool. Why not watch Voyager?
Eventually I'll get there.
Yeah. And then finally, I will handle this question myself, although you two feel free to jump in. Keel Watson asks, can Spencer please hang something on his walls? And the answer is no. Not no, but I don't have any art, I guess I need shelves to put toys and stuff back there. But it's funny. It's like we moved about 5-6 months ago, and the room that I spend the most time in, this room, is the one that we've done put the least effort into. So I'll print out maybe the Fandom logo and just on printer paper and tape it to the wall, if that makes you happy. But I wouldn't hold your breath for there being anything back here. I hear our studio looks very cool, which we will be moving into. Ryan, when are we moving into that?
I don't know, but it's awesome.
Okay, cool.
Ryan's seen it, unlike the rest of us.
Yeah, it's great. I'm filming something with Joe next week that's more just like an internal thing, but hopefully soon. Yeah, the desk looks awesome. We got 2 TVs now, and apparently we have the remotes for them, so it's a good time.
Wow. Well, till then you'll have to live with my psych ward white walls. And or send me some art or some ideas for something. I'm down to do movie posters or whatever. Just know that they have to. This is also the only other bedroom we have. So if somebody comes to stay over, like, you can't put like a They Live and an Army of Darkness poster up here. It has to like go a little bit undercover for guests.
I imagine an episode where your guest is just like laying on the couch the whole time while we're talking.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this has to be mother-in-law friendly. So suggestions welcome. And we will see y'all for another SJU at some point. I think we got something coming out later this week, maybe. Stay tuned.
Some reviews coming up. Halloween Kills review coming up. I think Thursday morning is my best guess now. So probably this time tomorrow you'll have a Halloween Kills review. And then I think the video you're referencing is next Tuesday, or maybe pushed back. I don't know. Stuff's coming up soon.
Coming up soon.
We got a calendar somewhere. We'll share a link.
We'll share it with you. Someday. Till then, thanks you so much for watching. We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.
This episode was brought to you by Hulu.